I want to get into our learning series called Jesus Amazed. In this learning series, we're talking about the topic of, say it if you know it. What is it? We've been in this for 12 weeks now, guys. Come on. Okay, we're talking about faith. We are talking about faith. And as a church, we're learning about faith. Now, as a follower of Jesus, a Christian, my definition of faith comes from Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1. And this is what it says in the Amplified version of the Bible. It says, "Now faith is the assurance. It's the title deed or the confirmation of things hoped for or divinely guaranteed. And it's the evidence of things not seen. It's the conviction of our reality, because faith comprehends as fact what cannot be experienced by the physical senses." And so we like to say it this way: you can believe God for something, and faith says that He says it's ours. I have faith for healing. It is mine. I have faith for hope. It is mine. I have faith for a dream, a purpose, for joy, for salvation even. It is mine because of faith. However, we may not feel it. We may not be able to touch it right now, but our faith convicts us that reality, our reality, what we see is not what God sees. God sees the final product. Now, we've been talking about this for quite a while now, but if you want to learn more about that, you can go to week 1 and go to week 2 and then to week 3, all the way till today, so that you can catch up on the Revived Church app. You can do that. Now, for a few verses later, we read this in Hebrews 11:6. Without faith, somebody say without faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God, because you have to come to God and believe that He is, and that He's a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. And so we've been talking about the difference of faith. And I've been saying it this way: there's different elevations of faith. You can have faith that pleases God, or you can have faith that amazes God. And so as I was reading this and studying this for this week, God gave me a little bit of a different clarification on faith. I believe that we can have faith that pleases God, or faith that amazes God. Or I like to say it this way: God gave me this last night. You can have shallow faith, or you can have deep faith. You can have shallow faith, or you can have deep faith. Shallow faith is like the shallow side of the pool. You can put your feet in and you can play and you can splash and it's all good. You can have shallow faith. Shallow faith, now don't get weird on me here, but listen closely. Shallow faith is believing that God exists. Shallow faith is believing that Jesus died for your sins, that you'll make it to heaven. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. Shallow faith and deep faith have one thing in common: you still made it in the pool. Okay, so don't think the shallow faith is a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a starter. When I was a kid, it's safe. When I was a kid, I remember being in the shallow end of the pool. I love the shallow end of the pool because I cannot swim that well. And I remember when I was 4'10", wanting to go into the 5-foot deep end. You still got 2 inches above your head. It's a very scary thing to be. All the people who can swim are like, what are you talking about? No, it's scary. It's very scary. You can be in the shallow end and you can play and you can enjoy, or you can be in the deep end and really believe God for things that no one said He could do, would do, or should do. No one thought He could do, would do, or should do. You can have a level of faith that says, God, I'm believing you to perform the miraculous. God, I'm having the faith to believe you to do things that the doctor said was impossible. And so we have these different variations of faith: shallow faith versus deep faith. Faith that pleases God and faith that amazes God. Today, though, I want to talk about a subject from Matthew chapter 14. It's going to help me illustrate this. And I want to talk to you about the topic of letting it break. Look at somebody and say, let it break. Let it break. If you are like me, you do not like broken things. I can't stand when things break, because I believe that if I pay full price for something, it should not break. Why do we spend thousands of dollars on cars that break? You ever bought a car and like 6 months in, you're already getting the transmission fixed, the radiator fixed? I cannot stand that. I hate car repair. I think that if you spend that much money on something that big, it should stay working forever. I don't think you should have to go repair it. I think they should do repairs for free. I felt that. Jesus, yes. I don't like when things break. The more expensive it is, especially, the more I don't want it to break. I mean, we are living in a reality now, whether you want to accept it or not, where cell phones cost $1,200. You could go, all you want. It will always, from now on, that is the new precedence. $1,200 is going to be the minimum. One day we will be spending $5,000 on a cell phone. Trust me, it'll happen. We just spend so much money. And let me tell you something, when I first got my cell phone, I did not want that thing to break. You coddle that thing. You put a case on it. You put a screen protector. You wrap it in bubble wrap. You can't even see through the bubble wrap, but you just put it in there because you do not want it to break. I don't like when things break. Man, when my wife and I first bought our house, can I tell you something? Everything broke in that house. It was the most annoying thing. We saved up to put a down payment on a house. We bought the house. We were so excited. And then guess what happened? We spent the next 7 months emptying our savings account to fix everything in the house. By the way, if you are planning on buying a house and you think I can afford a house because I can afford the monthly payment on a house, you're a fool. Buying a house has nothing to do with the monthly payment. Buying a house means, can you repair the entire AC unit and not go into debt? That's what buying a house is about. Just helping all you young bucks out there who are like, I can't wait to buy a house. You can wait, trust me. Things just break. One of the worst times where something broke was here at the church for me, and it was the most frustrating day of my entire life. That's probably an exaggeration, but it might be close to the truth. It was Easter Sunday a couple years ago. And we had built this special computer for our media system. It was running our lights, it was running our media, it was a supercomputer, and we had spent all this money having somebody build it for us, and it was great, it was awesome. And Easter Sunday rolls around, and I get word about an hour before service, Stephen, the computer broke. And I said, what do you mean the computer? Is Easter Sunday, okay? Now I know to some of y'all, like not having slides or lights, you're like, that's how church should be. Well, we believe differently here. And one of the things that we believe is like during the music time, we have the words on the screen behind me. And the reason we do that is because we believe in attracting people who are far from God. And so when you come in for the first time, you don't know these songs, we want to give you some lyrics so you can at least try to sing along, okay? But that day, Easter Sunday, where we're going to have so many first-time guests who have never been to church, don't like God, don't like church, and I'm supposed to preach a message about Jesus, how he died on the cross, came up out the grave, he's your salvation, thank God for grace and all that. And I'm stuck in the back in this computer trying to fix this. It broke on Easter Sunday an hour before service. Can I tell you something? That was the biggest distraction for me that day. I preached one of the worst messages of my life on Easter Sunday. I was so mad at everybody. Here was the worst part. I'm back in the back trying to fix the computer, and here's what people were doing. They were coming up to me as if you could not see that I was angry. You know who you are. You came up and be like, hey, Pastor Stephen, how you doing? And I'm like, bro, I love you, but I don't have time to talk right now. I gotta fix the computer. Now I know that's horrible. I should not have been doing that on Easter Sunday. But I hate when things break because they always break at the most inopportune time. In these past several weeks as we talked about Jesus Amazed Faith though, I've gotten you excited about the message of faith and believing for miracles. And I hope that you are believing God to do some amazing things. Now though, I want to take you into the deep side of faith and I want to teach you some principles about faith. I want to teach you something today that will change your heart and your mind for the better if you will receive it the right way. I want to talk to you about the topic of letting things break. Look at somebody again, say, let it break. Matthew chapter 14 is where we're going to be. Open the Revived Church app. You can follow along. It'll be on the screen behind me as well. Starting in verse 13, when Jesus heard this, he departed there by boat to a deserted place by himself. What Jesus had just heard is the news that his cousin, John the Baptist, had just been murdered. He had been beheaded. There was a lady who did not like him, and she said, I will give somebody a bunch of money if they'll go hunt down John the Baptist. So somebody did that. They brought his head to her on a silver platter. Jesus was distraught. He had bad days just like we do, and he decided, I'm going to go hang out by myself. But when the multitudes heard that Jesus was leaving, they followed him from the cities. And here's what another writer of the gospel says. It says that they actually ran ahead of him to where he was going just so they could meet him there. When Jesus went out, he saw a great multitude and he was moved with compassion for them and he healed their sick. And another book of the Bible, it records that he also started teaching them. So not only is he healing, he's talking to them. When it was evening, his disciples came to him and they said, this is a deserted place. The hour is late. Send the multitudes away that they may go into the villages and buy themselves some food. And Jesus looked at them and boldly said to them, in my opinion, they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. And they clap back at Jesus. We don't have any food. All we've got is 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he clapped back at them. Good, bring it to me. So then he commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass, and he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed. Pay attention, because this is going to hit you later on. He blessed, he broke, and he gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitude. So they all ate and were filled, and they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments that remained. Now those who had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. So if you've ever heard this story, it's usually referred to as the feeding of 5,000. Jesus feeds the 5,000 people. Historically, that's what we have titled this story. In reality, 5,000 men plus the women and children was more closer to about 15 to 20,000 people that Jesus fed with 5 loaves of bread and 2 little fish. In this story, though, there is a principle of faith that we have to learn as followers of Jesus if you want to get out of the shallow end of faith and into the deep end of faith. Only if you want to. If you don't want to, you can get on your phone and play some games. You don't got to listen to anything I'm saying. Put your headphones in and get on to Disney Plus. That's fine. But if you want to get out, yes, I said Disney Plus. We got it for our house too. If you want to get out of the shallow end into the deep end, I want you to pay attention today, because I want to give you 3 things from this scripture that help illustrate for us what Jesus Amazed Faith is going to look like as we let it break. And here's the first principle for you. God won't break what he doesn't first bless. God won't break what he doesn't first bless. Now, the term brokenness to us, to first world nation Christians, is one of those words that sounds gross. It sounds painful. It sounds disturbing. I don't want to be broken. You can think of it like breaking a dog, or you say breaking a kid when you're trying to potty train them, right? Because kids and puppies both pee on the floor for a while. But you're trying to break a dog of the habit of peeing inside. You want them to break the habit of doing that, so you take them outside to go to the bathroom. And kids, by the way, don't take your kids outside to go to the bathroom. You can put them on the toilet. You'll be all right. But I said the same, but they're a little different. But when you're trying to break someone of something, you have to train them. You have to discipline them. In the same way, when you are believing God for something big, when you're believing God for something that is just unreasonable in your mind, something that is unfathomable to you, to your human nature, you have to understand that before God can produce that miracle, he has to begin a breaking in you and through you so that you're ready to receive from him what he's got for you. Now, breaking, again, the word sounds gross to us. It sounds painful. We don't like breaking. Breaking doesn't line up with our theology. Breaking doesn't line up with our humanity. Breaking does not line up with our comfort. A lot of us are Netflix Christians. We want to curl up into our Snuggie and watch Netflix all day. I want to curl up in my Snuggie and watch YouTube all day. I want to be comfortable in my Christianity. There is no place for Jesus Amazed Faith and comfort in the same soul. If you want to have Jesus Amazed Faith, you have to be willing to get broken. But here's the good news about breaking. God will not break someone, will not break something that he does not first bless. He blessed and then he broke. He looked up to heaven and he blessed and then he broke. So here's the good news today. Before we move on to anything else, before you tune me out because you don't want to listen about breaking, God always blesses before he breaks, which tells me I don't have to be afraid of the breaking because I know that God blesses me first before he breaks me. And if you understand the value of God's blessing, you'll be willing to be broken because his blessing is always that good. Number 2, after the breaking, he puts it back in your hands. So he looked up to heaven with the 5 loaves, the 2 fish. He broke it, or he blessed it, he broke it, and then it says he gave it back to the disciples, and the disciples gave them something to eat. Whenever you tell God, I'm turning something over to you, there's three things that will happen if you allow it. Now, God will not force this on you. God will allow it to happen if you will allow it to happen, because God is not a dictator. He's a loving, gracious God. We have free will for a reason. We get to make our own decisions. God will first bless whatever you put in his hands. Secondly, he'll begin to break whatever you put in his hands. And lastly, he will put it back into your hands to use. Let me give you an example. If you tell God, God, I am giving you my health. I'm asking you for healing in my body. Here's what will happen. God will take your health and he will begin to break it apart. You say, Stephen, that doesn't sound good. No, it's great, because here's what God will do. I'm going to break you of your desire to eat fast food all the time. I'm going to break your habit of eating ice cream at 2 a.m. I see a lot of smiles in the crowd today. Y'all look so happy about this. I'm gonna break your addiction to smoking. I'm gonna break your addiction of alcoholism. No? We don't like that? God, I'm asking you to bless my finances. God, I put my finances back into your hands. He takes it. He blesses your finances, but it doesn't look blessed yet. Why? Because he hasn't broken it yet. I'm going to break your credit cards. I'm going to break your desire to go so much into debt that you feel depressed all the time and you blame it on big companies. It's not their fault. You signed up for the credit card. I'm going to break your desire to hold on to every penny you have and cause you to be generous on every occasion. I'm going to break your mindset that tithing is a bad thing and make you tithe to your local church. No? Wait. Wait a minute. But God, I just asked you to bless it. I didn't ask you to break it. But as followers of Jesus, let me tell you something. If you want to see a miracle, you can't have one without the other. But step right into your business. God, I'm asking you to bless my relationship. And God's saying, good, I blessed it. Now let me break you of the habit of waking up in strangers' beds. Let me break you of your habit of pornography. Let me break you of the habit of thinking that cohabitation is godly. No? God, I'm asking you to bless it. I'm not asking you to break it. But if God blesses it without breaking it, you'll never see it multiply. Because this is the truth, that whatever God blesses and breaks always causes multiplication to happen in our lives. It says he blessed, he broke, and he gave. He gave it back to the disciples. He puts it back into our hands. And when he put it into the disciples' hands, let me tell you something, that's where the miracle happened. A lot of us, we think that Jesus was like the Swedish chef from the Muppets. He took the bread, he's like, verdi, dirty, dirty, verdi, dirty, dirty, verdi, dirty, dirty, and he's just breaking bread, throwing it out into the crowd. You get some, you get some. He's all Oprah. Everybody gets bread. No, that's not what he was doing. Jesus took the bread and he broke it into two pieces. I guarantee you, he broke it into just enough. He put it back into the disciples' hands, and guess what happened? The miracle happened after Jesus blessed, after Jesus broke, and after he gave it back to the disciples. Let me say it this way. The miracle happened because the disciples obeyed. It was already blessed when Jesus blessed it. It was already broken when Jesus broke it, and he gave it back to the disciples, and as they distributed it, here's what another writer, I believe it's John, here's what he says happened. He said that Jesus instructed them, take the crowds and put them into groups of 50s and 100s. We're talking about 20,000 people. Put them in groups of 50s and 100s. We don't have probably 200 people in here, 100 people in here. If I told y'all, could you please split up into a group of 50 each? You would lose your minds. You would have it would be chaos in here. Have you ever tried to get a group of toddlers into a group of like 4, 5? It doesn't happen. Adults are even worse. Because the reason why toddlers can't do it is because their attention span is so short. The reason why adults can't do it is because y'all are stubborn as heck. I'm not getting in that group. I'm going to be in this group over here. Jesus said, hey, I want you to put them in groups of 50s and 100s. So first thing the disciples had to do was spend an hour trying to get 20,000 people in groups of 50s and 100s. Then they took the bread and he said, you give them something to eat. So what did they do? They took the bread and they began to pass it to the first person and pass it to the second person and pass it to the third person. And by the time they got to the 47th person and the 48th person and the 49th person and the 50th person, they still had bread in their hands. The reason why we don't want things to break is because we think that broken things are worthless. What if I told you that when God breaks something, he breaks it so that it will multiply, not so that it will diminish? Whatever God breaks will grows. Whatever God breaks will multiply in your life. God is not breaking to take away from, he's breaking to give more to. We miss this sometimes because we think brokenness, like I said, it's a dirty word. It's not a dirty word. Whatever God blesses, whatever God breaks, it is meant to multiply. The Bible says, so they all ate and were filled, and they took up 12 basketfuls afterward. I don't know about you. I can put 2 and 2 together. 12 disciples, 12 basketfuls. Not only did 20,000 people eat with more than enough, but each one of the disciples had a basket full. And this is not a little picnic basket. These are giant baskets that they would wear like backpacks. It was tall and they would carry them through, and it had all the food they needed. In other words, when God blesses and breaks and multiplies, it's for an overflow. You think that when you go to God and put things in his hands and ask him to bless it, that's multiplication. It cannot multiply if it is not broken. And the multiplication is not about God putting something just back into your hands. It's about an overflow. You know, it's hard to ask God for something when you know he's going to break something. It's amazing to me when I ask God for more peace. I say, God, I'm putting my peace in your hands. I'm asking you to bless me with peace. And you know what happens? God will send the most annoying people my way. I mean, the most annoying people. Some of you are like, you talking about me? Yes, probably, I am. No, I'm kidding. When I ask God for joy, you know what happens? All these situations hit me all at once. I ask God for finances, you know what happens? All these stupid things I got to pay money for happen all at once. You know what's amazing? You'll ask God, God, I'm asking you to bless me. I want to open this business. I want you to make me a CEO. Bless my business, God. And here's what God will do. He will knock you right back down to a burger flipper at McDonald's. And you'll go, but God, this isn't what I asked you to. I asked you to bless my business. And he go, I did. And I also broke you. Because if you started a business today without the breaking through the process, your business would go belly up real quick. But when you're in a business model that's successful, that you can learn something from, it feels like brokenness, but what God's actually doing is he's multiplying. Some of y'all are like, I'm gonna sell essential oils and be part of the Diamond Club. Can I tell you something? You can't just go into multi-level marketing and just sell things and make a lot of money. It doesn't work like that. You have to learn how to sell. We couldn't just start a church. You know why? We have some of the best people in our guest experience team, that they are so friendly at the front doors and they want to help people. You know why that is? Because we implemented a culture that I learned from one of my previous jobs at Chick-fil-A. When I worked at Chick-fil-A, you know what they taught us? They taught us, you are not selling chicken, you are serving people. And here's what they believe. They believe you serve God by serving people. And I worked there for a few years, and guess what I learned? I learned that I was not a chicken salesman. I was serving God by serving people. So you know what one of the first things we did when we started our church was? I talked to everybody on our team, even when we were super small, and I said, we do whatever it takes to make this experience the absolute best. Revive Church will be the best place ever. And so we got all these friendly people, friendly faces, they're all smiling. You know why they do that? To balance out me. Because when I get up here and I preach a message that sounds so rough and tough, you already have a smile on your face because Miss Mary was at the back or the front door and she's like, good morning, God bless you, good to see you, giving you a hug, fist bump and everything. You're like, this place is awesome. And then I break you. Blessed, broken. Hello. Got it. Can I tell you something? Before you get married, let God break you. Because if you're not broken pre-marriage, you'll get broken after marriage. And marriages don't last with someone who's broken. Can I tell you something? If you're a parent here today, and you're one of those parents that loves to talk about how you want your kids to know Jesus, but you refuse to let God break you first, stop lying. See, when God blesses and he breaks, it's all about multiplication. And the multiplication is not so that you can just store up for yourself. The multiplication is so that you can take care of others. God's trying to multiply joy because Karen at the front desk at work is always in a bad mood and she needs some supernatural joy. God's trying to multiply peace because your boss, who is stressed all the time, needs some supernatural peace. God's trying to restore your marriage, give you a healthy marriage, because let me tell you, I'm gonna speak this today. If you are over the age of 40 and you are married, get your marriage right. Please. Let God break some things. Get your marriage right. You know why 20-year-olds don't want to get married? Because we watched all of you and your marriages sucked. It's not because we can't afford things. Godliness and sex go hand in hand. It's not about we can't afford things. We want to get married, but we watched the generation before us and their marriages fail and fail and fail because they never let God break them of some things. So they went in unhealthy. They went in unsatisfied. They went in not whole. And then when they went in there, they just tore each other apart. And now we got a whole generation who's saying, I'm not getting married. I don't need to. I don't want that. I do not want what you've got. But you were the same folks who were sitting in the second row, front row of church. Lord, we worship you. Lord, we lift your name on high. My generation, listen up. We've got a generation coming up who is questioning everything about God. We got teenagers right now. They have self-guided spirituality. And if we do not teach them, it's okay to let God break you first because he always blesses you when he breaks you. If we do not show them that our hearts for God mean the world, it's not about getting more for us, it's about giving more than we ever thought possible. If we don't show them that God loves them regardless of what they think now, regardless of who they are now, regardless of their ideology now, regardless of their sexuality now, if we don't teach them that God does not look at them as they are, but who he has called them to be, they will keep fleeing the church. They'll keep fleeing God. You got to get this message down in your heart. Let God break you. Let God break your identity, break your sexuality, break your relationship, break your job, break your finances, break your friendship, break it open and multiply it back into the way he knew it was supposed to be. Because here's the last thing. Whenever God blesses, he transforms it into what he spoke into it. Listen to me. When God speaks, things change. The Bible says he looked up to heaven and he blessed. The word blessed means he spoke over it. Here's what I picture Jesus doing. You're going to feed everybody I see. Break. Gave it to the disciples. They obeyed and a miracle happened. God's speaking over you today. I've got a purpose for you. Break. I've got a husband for you. Break. I've got a healing for you. Break, 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 break. Why? Because he blessed it first. He already spoke it into existence. He already spoke it over your life. Now he's trying to break. And when he breaks, it multiplies. When he breaks, things change. When he breaks, you have more joy, more peace, you have identity, you have a purpose, you have a dream again, you have hope again. When he breaks, it sounds like it's gonna hurt, and it will for a season, but if you would just let it break, you would see the miracle. Because Jesus' amazing miracles don't just happen because you're blessed. They happen because you let it break.